The haters logged on Thursday morning, thinking they had a story. They were ready. They had their talking points loaded. They were going to point at Indian Wells, at the Linda Noskova loss, at the 6-2, 6-0 scoreline, the worst result of Alex Eala's career. They were going to say she cracked under pressure. They were going to say the ranking is a mirage. They were going to say she doesn't belong at the very top of this sport. They had the receipts. They had the narrative. They had everything they needed to bury this girl's story before Miami even started. And then Monday happened. And then Tuesday happened. And by Wednesday, by the time the photos spread across every Filipino WhatsApp group on Earth, by the time the Miami Heat's Instagram exploded, by the time the Broken Racket's red carpet gallery went viral and showed the world exactly who was standing in the most exclusive room at the most glamorous party of the entire tennis calendar, the haters had nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because you cannot write a takedown piece about a girl who just walked into David Grutman's legendary Miami Open Gala, the event that Broken Rackets themselves called the Met Gala of tennis, and stood in the same room as Aryna Sabalenka, Matteo Berrettini, Taylor Fritz, Frances Tiafoe, and Caroline Wozniacki. You cannot call her irrelevant when the most celebrated Filipino-American coach in NBA history just went on social media to tell the world she is a powerhouse. You cannot dismiss her when Miami itself, the city, the culture, the courts, the arenas, has claimed her as its own.
So amazing. That's why I stayed to watch the night match, to hear the fans, to feel the energy that comes, because that's all we talk about.
The party started without the haters, and this video is going to show you every single thing they missed. Let's set the scene properly, because context is the difference between a good story and an unforgettable one. It is the week of March 16th, 2026. The 2026 Miami Open is days away from beginning at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. One of the most glamorous stops on the ATP and WTA calendar, defined by the city's vibrant culture, nightlife, five-star dining and hospitality, iconic beaches, and celebrity appeal. This is not just a tennis tournament. This is 2 weeks of sport and spectacle, and South Florida heat wrapped in one of the most culturally rich cities on the American map. Every player wants to be here. Every celebrity wants courtside seats. Every brand wants their logo in the frame. And into this world walks Alexandra Eala, world number 29, the 31st seed, the girl who 12 months ago arrived at this exact tournament as a wildcard ranked 140th in the world. And within 72 hours of touching down in Miami, she had been to the Met Gala of tennis and to the home court of an NBA dynasty, and been publicly declared a powerhouse by one of the greatest coaches in professional basketball history. Tell me the last time a 20-year-old tennis player had a week like that. You cannot, because it has never happened before. Let's start with Monday, March 16th, Kaseya Center, home of the Miami Heat. Alex Eala visited Kaseya Center, where she reunited with Miami Heat head coach Erik Spoelstra, the very same mentor who guided the Heat to back-to-back NBA titles in 2012 and 2013 alongside LeBron James. 3 championships, 3 rings, the most decorated coach in Miami Heat history. And on this particular Monday, the day Spoelstra notched his 700th career NBA coaching victory as Miami beat the Charlotte Hornets, he made time for Alex Eala. Not after the game, not a quick hallway handshake.
Oh, really?
Deal?
Okay, deal. That's it.
The Heat documented it. They filmed it. They edited it into a feature video and posted it to their official social media pages with a caption that the Filipino internet has not stopped talking about since. "Just 2 powerhouses repping the Philippines at the highest level," read the caption. Two powerhouses. The word choice is everything. Not two rising stars, not two proud Filipinos. Powerhouses. The Miami Heat, one of the most commercially sophisticated sports franchises on the planet, with a social media team that understands exactly what every word they publish means, chose the word powerhouses. For an NBA championship coach and a 20-year-old tennis player who hasn't yet won a Grand Slam. Because that is what they are. That is the honest, unvarnished truth of what these two people represent. Spoelstra is the first Asian-American head coach to win an NBA championship. The first in the entire history of the NBA. And Eala is the first Filipino woman to crack the WTA Top 30. The first to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. The first to beat a top 5 player as a wild card. The first. Always the first. Two Filipinos. Both first. Both standing in the same arena on the same day. And the Miami Heat said, "These are our people." Think about what that means to a 17-year-old girl growing up in Quezon City right now, watching this video on her phone, racket propped against the wall of her bedroom, dreaming of a future that feels impossibly far away. Think about what it means to see the greatest Filipino-American sports figure in American professional history standing next to the greatest Filipino tennis player who has ever lived. And the biggest basketball franchise in South Florida calling them both powerhouses. Their story began in 2023, when Eala, just 17 years old and ranked outside the top 150, attended a Heat game for the very first time in her life. She posed for photos with Spoelstra and Heat star Bam Adebayo. And that night happened to coincide with Spoelstra's 700th career coaching win. She was 17, ranked outside the top 150, and she spent her evening at an NBA arena watching a champion coach hit a milestone, not knowing that 3 years later, she herself would be standing in that same arena, ranked inside the top 30, preparing for the most important tournament of her career so far. And the Miami Heat would be building tribute videos around their reunion. 3 years. From outside the top 150 to world number 29. From a teenager watching her first NBA game to a professional tennis player that an NBA franchise uses to market itself. That is not a journey. That is a metamorphosis. And the haters, who have been calling it luck for 12 months, are running out of ways to explain 3 years of documented, sustained, measurable ascent. But Monday was just the opening act. Because what happened next? What happened when the tennis world's most exclusive social event threw open its doors for the Miami Open pre-tournament celebration, is where the story becomes truly, spectacularly electric. David Grutman. If you do not know that name, you need to. He is Miami's most powerful hospitality entrepreneur, the man whose venues define South Beach nightlife, whose events set the temperature for the entire city's social calendar, and whose parties are not attended, they are granted. You do not buy a ticket to David Grutman's world, you are invited into it. And the guest list he assembled for this year's Miami Open celebration was, by any measure, the most extraordinary gathering of tennis royalty that South Florida has ever seen. Aryna Sabalenka, world number 1, defending Miami champion, was there with her fiancé, Georgios Frangoulis. Grigor Dimitrov was there. Taylor Fritz was there. Francis Tiafoe was there. Matteo Berrettini was there. Paige Lorenze was there. Eva Liss was there. Marta Kostyuk was there. And Caroline Wozniacki, former world number 1, Grand Slam champion, one of the greatest players of her era, was there. This is the room. This is the company. This is the A-list of professional tennis gathered under one roof in South Beach for the biggest social event of the entire Miami Open calendar. And Alexandra Eala was there, dressed in a chic top paired with classic jeans, standing among the champions and the legends and the most recognizable names in the sport. The party's highlights were captured and shared by the official Instagram of Broken Rackets, who described it in their caption as the Met Gala of tennis. Miami nights curated by the one and only David Grutman. The Met Gala of tennis. That is the standard of event. That is the level of exclusivity. The Met Gala. the most famous, most photographed, most culturally significant fashion event in the world. And Broken Rackets, the definitive voice of tennis culture, just used it as the comparison for the party that Alex Eala attended this week in Miami. Now let's take a moment to appreciate the savage poetry of this. Because 12 months ago, exactly 12 months ago, Alex Eala was a wild card. She was ranked 140th. She did not have a WTA seed. She did not have a first-round bye. She arrived at Miami 2025 as a storyline nobody had written yet. And the establishment that was inside this very party this week, the same players and coaches and industry figures who attended this gala, they looked at her ranking and assigned her small courts and late-night slots and expected her to fade quietly into the second round. 1 year later, she is at their party, in their room, in their photos, in their world. Not as a guest who snuck through the service entrance, as a peer, as a seed, as a top 30 player who has beaten 5 of their top 10 colleagues in the last 12 months, and whose name is the first one every ticket buyer in South Florida typed into the search bar when the draw was released. The Met Gala of tennis. And Alex Eala was on the guest list. Now let's talk about what she is actually walking into on court. Because the stakes this week are enormous, and no amount of glamorous pre-tournament events changes the ruthless arithmetic of the WTA ranking system. The 390 points she earned from last year's Miami semifinal run are on the line this fortnight. Her performance here will directly impact whether she maintains her top 30 standing or slides back into a tightly packed field just outside it. As a more complete version of the same aggressive identity that carried her through Miami last year, her serve has shown better placement and variation, allowing her to earn more free points. Her rally tolerance has improved, and she has been more selective with her shot making. She is better. Technically, measurably, demonstrably better. But defending points in the WTA is the hardest thing in the sport, because now every opponent has spent a year studying the wide lefty serve, the backhand down the line, the willingness to absorb and redirect. The element of surprise that carried her through Miami 2025 is gone. What she has instead is something far more valuable: experience, growth, and the confidence of a player who already knows she belongs at this level. She opens against 38-year-old German veteran Laura Siegemund, the second oldest player in the top 60, who has been struggling for form in 2026, failing to advance past the round of 64 in 5 consecutive tournaments this season. That match is the door. Get through it, and the rematch everyone has been waiting for looms. Iga Swiatek in the round of 32. Swiatek. Again. The woman she destroyed 6-2, 7-5 on this exact court 12 months ago. Eala ripped through the 2025 Miami draw with a fearless first-strike mentality, taking out Ostapenko, Keys, and Swiatek before falling to Pegula in the semifinals. And now the draw has set up a potential rematch on Swiatek's first tournament back at the scene of her most public humiliation in recent memory. Do you think Swiatek has forgotten? Do you think she hasn't spent hours in practice since Miami 2025 specifically preparing for that left-handed forehand, that cross-court angle, that aggressive baseline game that stripped her of a set and a half in under an hour? She has. She absolutely has. The rematch, if it happens, will be a completely different match. A tactical war between two elite competitors who now know each other's game at a molecular level. But here is what Swiatek also cannot prepare for. Here is the one variable that no amount of practice footage can neutralize. When those lights come on at Hard Rock Stadium and 60,000 Filipinos start making noise, when the flags go up and the chants start, and the atmosphere that Jessica Pegula described as something she had never experienced in her home city begins to shake the walls, Alex Eala will feel it in her chest like a second heartbeat. And Swiatek will feel it too, in a very, very different way. Let us talk about the haters one final time, because they deserve a proper send-off. These are the people who, after Miami 2025 said it was a fluke? Who said the wildcard draw was favorable? Who said Swiatek had a bad day? Who said the Filipino fans were just a novelty crowd that would disappear when the results didn't follow? Who said Eala would fade back into the rankings and in 6 months, nobody would remember her name? They watched her go to Dubai and beat Paolini, number 7 in the world. They said she got lucky in a tiebreak. They watched her go to Indian Wells and beat Coco Gauff. They said Gauff was injured. They watched her reach a career high of world number 29. They said the rankings were inflated. And this week, while they were busy composing their next dismissal, while they were polishing their next, actually the real issue with Eala is, think piece, she was standing in Kaseya Center with Erik Spoelstra. She was walking the red carpet of the Met Gala of tennis. She was photographed alongside world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka and former world number 1 Caroline Wozniacki at the most exclusive event of the entire Miami Open calendar. The Miami Heat said it. Just 2 powerhouses repping the Philippines at the highest level. Powerhouses. Not prospects, not wildcards, not lucky stories that happen to go viral. Powerhouses. And the envy. The specific, choking, impossible-to-hide envy that comes from watching someone you dismissed get everything you told them they didn't deserve. That envy is sitting in the haters' throats right now like a stone they cannot swallow. Because you do not get invited to David Grutman's world by accident. You do not get a tribute video from the Miami Heat by accident. You do not get a first-round bye as a seed at a WTA 1000 tournament by accident. You do not get called a powerhouse by a 3-time NBA championship coach by accident. You get those things by being exactly what Alexandra Eala is. The best Filipino tennis player who has ever lived. The player who walked into Miami as an unknown and walked out as a phenomenon. The player who turned Dubai into a 48% ticket sales explosion, turned Indian Wells into a midnight crowd in the desert, turned the Philippines into a tennis nation with a waiting list for court bookings. The player who made the WTA restructure itself. The player who made James Blake go on national television and say he learned his lesson. As ESPN put it, in 2026, Alex Eala isn't just chasing another run. She's proving it wasn't a fluke. The party has happened. The red carpet has been walked. The photos are already everywhere. The haters are outside looking in, and they will stay there, because that is what happens when you bet against someone who was always, quietly, absolutely certain of where they were going. World number 29, seeded, first round bye, red carpet, Met Gala of tennis, NBA powerhouse cosign, and a draw that could put Iga Swiatek in her path before the second week even starts. Miami 2026. Her tournament, her city, her moment. Laban, Alex. The whole world already knows you belong here. If you are watching every Alex Eala match at Miami this year, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. The draw is live, the haters are quiet, and this story is about to reach a level that nobody saw coming. Nobody except her.